Hey, somebody needs to let down the tailgate. You have? Excellent. Good morning, afternoon, or evening. You are listening to the Professional Noticer. Hello, everyone. I'm Andy Andrews. Hey, thank you for making me a part of your week. My purpose here today and with every show we do is to play the part of a best friend or a coach. I want to help you live the life of your wildest dreams by giving you access to the greatest mentors the world has to offer today. This week, the Professional Noticer is sponsored by wisdomharbor.com. Hey, here's a couple of quick questions. First, how long has the public school system in your state been repeating the mantra, more money for education? And the second question, through the years, as they've gotten more money, how much has changed? Today, schools all over America are finding wisdomharbor.com's one-of-a-kind streaming service to be the perfect, low-cost, high-quality educational tool for their students. Wisdom Harbor's stated responsibility is to create the next greatest generation, starting with your hometown and your school system. For less than $3 a month per teacher, classrooms have access to original content only found on wisdomharbor.com that teaches, entertains, and builds character in young people while creating conversations between young people and the adults in their community. Utilizing video, audio, and the written word, content is delivered in small bites by Grammy winners, CEOs, comedians, chefs, best-selling authors, and Hall of Fame speakers. There are even guitar lessons from an award-winning songwriter. Check it out today and join your friends and neighbors who are already a part of wisdomharbor.com. And isn't it time your schools got involved? wisdomharbor.com, creating America's next greatest generation, starting with your hometown. Observations and answers, that's what we do here on the Professional Noticer. And as you know, we love it when somebody comes to the table with both. I mean, anytime we can have somebody that has observation and answers, well, there we have a bonus. And so we have this today. I can't tell you how excited I am to have our guest on today, but I'm not nearly as excited as my youngest son. And I'll tell you about that in just a minute. But our guest today, his last collection of music debuted at number 1 on the iTunes Top Country charts. He announced a song. I Call BS on That was the name of that song. And it had over 10 million views on Facebook. I saw this guy on YouTube, I guess, a couple of weeks ago. And he said, hey, I'd like to tell everybody we are 5,000 subscribers away from 1 million. And in a couple hours, there they were. And so there's well over 1 million subscribers on YouTube now. Please welcome Buddy Brown. Hey, buddy, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me, Andy.
And we have you today from Madison, Mississippi.
That's it. Deep south as it gets. You don't get any further deep south than Mississippi.
That's true. And I told you off the air that I'm glad my wife is not here because you and my wife would just cut me out of the conversation. She's from DeKalb, Mississippi. Yeah. And, anytime she finds somebody from Mississippi, it's like finding some long-lost brother or sister.
Yeah. That's it. Mama taught me never to use 5 words when 26 will do just fine. So we can talk the horns off a billy goat anytime.
I've just given some of your credits, and that's just a few of them. But I think one of the most important things and encouraging, fantastic things that people could find out about you is you don't have a record contract.
No, not at all. That was
you've turned a couple down, but you don't have one.
Correct.
And so tell us about that particular, I guess, focus in your performing life.
A lot of people feel like Nashville is the Nashville of the 1980s or the 1990s, and the truth of the matter is, it's all gone very, very liberal. And they don't want anybody expressing the songs that Waylon Jennings used to express, or Hank Jr. or Willie or Christopherson. They want something that they call universally appealing. And that means you're not offending even half of 1% of anybody by taking a political stance or talking about God. any of that stuff. It has to be done their way. So I had the deal on the table, which was basically, you have the deal. We're going to make you famous. We're going to make you bigger than you can ever imagine, which was never anything I wanted. I could care less about fame or any of that stuff. And I think anybody that's ever followed me for 2 weeks knows about that. But it just got really evident that it truly was what they say, shaking hands with the devil. And I didn't want any part of it. I thought, how are we going to make this work? And all of a sudden, this thing called social media opens up wide about 2008 and 9. We got on Facebook and YouTube and just started releasing videos. And we keep saying God gave us door number 3, because instead of having to go and do a record deal, here I'm able to put all my songs out, and they're able to compete step for step with anybody in the mainstream, and they have. So, 400 million views and 1 million subscribers. It's been a wild ride, but the best part is I was able to stick to my guns and not sell my soul to do it. And I'm able to make my kids baseball games on Saturdays. And there's nothing cooler than that.
Yeah, man. You have a 7th grader and 8th grader, both boys.
Yeah.
And I'm just a little ahead of you. I have a 21-year-old and a 23-year-old. And, my 21-year-old is actually responsible for us talking today. His name is Adam. And about a year and a half ago, he came in and said, "Dad, you've got to see this video." And I said, "What is it?" He said, "It's a guy named Buddy Brown." And I said, "Now, who's Buddy Brown?" He said, "Well, he does on YouTube, and he doesn't have a record contract, and I love his music." And I said, "Oh, awesome. All right, well, show me what you got." And so he played Cool Obituary for me.
Oh, man.
And I'll bet you I have since played that music video for 20 of my friends. That whole concept, the music video about the bear and the old man back in the old days that went after the grizzly bear that killed his friend. I mean, well, that is great. And I love the tag. It must have been scary. He's gone, but he left a cool obituary.
Absolutely. That's probably my favorite song, that and a song called Pedro that we ever did. And because they're kind of like a score to a movie. And I would love to see both of those movies. But those are something and we filmed that in a cemetery just a few miles from my house. And matter of fact, it's supposed to be one of the most haunted cemeteries in this entire America. First time we filmed it was with a crew for about 12 hours, and all the footage blinked every 6 seconds. The footage was gone. The camera batteries were drained. No explanation. Turns out, if you believe in that sort of thing or not, I don't know how to explain it any other way. But that place is haunted as heck, and they drained our camera batteries, and all the footage was gone. And we went back, and I told the crew to wait in the parking lot to reshoot the entire thing 3 days later. And I said, I need to go out there first. It's the place I grew up with. I walked through the cemetery. I took my hat off. I said, "I don't even know if anybody's out here or not, but I would just ask you to not mess with our camera equipment. We come here with nothing but respect and good intentions. Please let us shoot this to honor you and leave us the heck alone." And all the footage was fine. Weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life.
That is an amazing story. That is an amazing story. Well, Polly had one of her Mississippi friends over not too long ago, and we sat there in the kitchen and watched Looters and Garth Brooks is Too Smart to Act This Dumb. And a lot of you have some funny songs as well as the serious ones.
Yeah, it's cool. Just being a musician, everybody always tells you just to shut up and sing. So it was a shock to us when 2020 hit in the pandemic. And my wife said, "Why don't you just speak from the heart?" Because it was one of those things. In another life, I was a youth pastor and thought about very seriously becoming a pastor. And that just was not my calling at that time. And the funniest thing was, as soon as I started talking, I figured nobody's going to watch any of these videos. And now they're actually bigger than the music itself. So we haven't stopped. We say it's life, God, politics, everything under the sun, anything American at all. But it's been incredible that people actually watch it. Because like I said, coming from the musician, they usually just tell you to shut up. But this has been kind of the opposite of that.
Well, the past couple of weeks, we've been hearing about Oliver, what's his last name?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know who I'm talking about. The guy
Mhm.
that did Rich Man from Richmond. But you are the one who plowed the ground for him. I mean, everybody's talking about him right now, but they've been talking about you steady on, and it's kind of like you two guys are the voice of the nation right now.
Yeah, and I would definitely add John Rich and Jason Aldean to that list. Aaron Lewis as well. There's I'll tell you what, the Jason Aldean song, Try That in a Small Town, which was, all the talk about 2 months ago, that paved the way. And I've been trying to pave the way for many years, as anybody's been watching knows. But it's really starting to get to the point where I feel like we have a voice, and
Yeah.
we're kind of sticking it to the establishment and showing these actually get a whole lot more traction than all of your songs that you call universally appealing. It's because it's what we all say in our truck with our buddy anyway. It's what we say around a bonfire with loved ones anyway. Why not put it on the air? It may not be squeaky clean, politically correct, but I've never had a video that was below 99.7% liked. And with those numbers, it's like, who are we offending? Who are we scared of? 99.7 is the lowest I've ever had a video. We're talking 0.3%. That's as controversial as it gets. So
Right.
people need to quit worrying about, being scared of being fired or kicked out of this school board meeting or kicked out of that. Just be an American, show that you love people first, and then speak from the heart, just like our country music heroes would have done 40, 50 years ago. That's the way I feel.
I don't know how much and I don't know if you know anything about me, but I used to spend a lot of time in Nashville. And before you were born, I'm sure there was a show on the Nashville network called Nashville Now. And I used to do that show and used to guest host it for Ralph Emery occasionally. And I knew all those one name guys. I knew Waylon and Merle and Willie and Chris and Johnny, and I toured with Kenny Rogers for 5 years, and just a lot of those guys, and got to spend a lot of time with. I'll tell you someday. I'll tell you a story about a July 4th on Bull Run Battlefield with Waylon and George Jones, when I was supposed to go between them. I was a comedian. I was supposed to go between them, and neither one of them would go on first. And it was like 105 people were falling out. And it was crazy. It was crazy. But all those guys were great, very unique, and they weren't scared to speak their mind. They weren't scared to say what they believed.
Yeah.
And I think, and I know this sounds silly, but I think it's because they believed what they believed. They didn't kind of fake what they believed.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a close friend right now that I would love you and he to connect. His name's Jimmy Yeary, and he's a songwriter there in Nashville. And he wrote "I Drive Your Truck." He wrote "I Called Mama" for Tim McGraw, and Jimmy has kind of the same feelings you do. He says, he said they're wanting these songs about, underage drinking out in the middle of a cornfield and a shotgun wedding. He said, I don't like that stuff. I don't want to write that. And so Jimmy writes stuff like "I Drive Your Truck" and "I Called Mama" and "I'm Gonna Love You Through It," and a lot of that kind of stuff. You guys have a lot in common. I would love to connect y'all. You both have young families too. So
Absolutely.
So where are you performing live? I mean, are you just staying on?
That's the interesting part. I'm really doing half a dozen shows a year now. I was doing 65, 75 back in 2016, 17, 18. And I just finally was on the road one night in Portland, Oregon, when at the time, I guess he was 5, 6 years old. My oldest, Sam, called me from the road and he said, I haven't seen you in 6 days. Can you just tell me a bedtime story? I said, this is stupid. This is and a lot of guys can do it and somehow detach. I never could. Like I said, I need to be at that ball game on Saturday. And it's a wild thing because getting to do what I do, I could go play at a concert and I enjoy those while I'm there. I do. But and I want to be careful about how I say this because I don't want it to sound the least bit cocky. That's not my intention whatsoever. It's just that I can play a concert for 5 or 10,000 people, but when I upload a video, I've got 5 or 10,000 people within 6 or 7 minutes that have already seen it, and every one of them are pretty much going over 100,000 views now. So it's kind of, let's focus our effort to where God is blessing it, to where I can feel like I'm still me and be a husband and a dad and a friend and a son and all that stuff, and still very much so concentrate on the videos that I'm able to crank out 2 or 3 a week, because I can get more on this side of the aisle, than than I ever could in concert or I ever could in politics. I feel like this is just a very, very unique way, and we're definitely pioneering it. Everything with this whole online stuff, it's pioneering. Nothing's ever been done like this before. So pretty wild when you're getting more views than some of the bottom 4 or 5 news anchors at CNN, and it makes them mad as hornets.
Yeah, and I know Oliver has a bunch of views on his songs, but you have a body of work. I mean, you have a consistent effort over the past several years where everything you're releasing, and I got to say, I love the variety that you do, because I love the fully formed music videos, but I also love the truck sessions. I love it when you sit on the tailgate of your truck and just say, okay, here's one I wrote yesterday. I think that shows a real, a realness. I don't know what the word is that I think is missing with a lot of entertainers and connecting with their people.
The production's incredible now. What they can do to make even people who can't sing, and the instrumentation. I mean, they go in there and they cut an album, and they've got 25 people that work on it after that, and then they got 25 people that it goes to after that, and it becomes this package that is just not real. And I feel like if you sing a song from a tailgate, they know that there's nothing at all. There's no smoke and mirrors. I mean, there's no smoke machines and spotlights.
No auto tune on the back of that truck.
No, you can't fake it. And I feel like if you can do it where it's impossible to fake, then the heart comes out, and they're not trying to look at you like you're selling something or any of that garbage. It's just, this is what it's like, and it's raw for them. And if they do really well and they get successful, then you take it to the studio and you dress it up later. But that's everybody always did it the other way. I like to do it backwards.
Where were you a youth director?
So back in 2003, my dad had contacted the largest, I think it was like the largest Baptist church in Australia. It's in Melbourne. And he's a wild hair guy. I mean, he just always just has wild ideas. And I was getting out of my sophomore year at college at Mississippi State, and he said, how would you like to spend the summer in Australia? I thought that's the most random, but if you knew my dad, he's just unbelievably random. The thoughts and ideas he has go through his mind. It's like, I can't imagine living in his head. But it was a weird thing where it kind of worked out, and I got we didn't have Zoom calls back then, but I got to have a phone call with the pastor down there, and it was a very large church, and he said, we actually need a intern youth pastor to come down here. And we went through all these phone calls and qualifications and letters of reference, and lo and behold, I did that whole thing for about 6 months. And it was a time where I didn't actually think I was going to ever come back to the States. I was very much so content living in Australia for the rest of my life, but I did come back, thank God, met my wife here, and I was involved in Fellowship of Christian Athletes at Mississippi State, and a lot of different ministries. But whenever I sang, it seemed like Randy Travis and George Strait came out. So
yeah.
I could never get that red off my neck.
That is funny. That is funny. Where did you meet your wife?
We met in high school, and thank God we never dated because I would have messed it up. But we met in high school, and we were about 12 hours apart my freshman year. And I was going through old phone numbers that I was deleting, saying, this person I'm never going to see again, delete. This person's never going to be in my life, delete. And I came to her name, and I still remember the moment. I came to her name, and I said, I can't delete this one. I really like her. For some reason, there's just something about her. And I picked up the phone and called her. Well, I had a Monday night class every single Monday, had a 30-minute drive back home. And I would spend that 30 minutes calling her. And by the time we got back together in town that summer, we started dating and then we got married. Got 17 years now, been married. So
wow.
It's just crazy.
That's a God thing, looking at those deletions and not deleting that one.
Without a doubt. Yeah,
that is awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, we want to put a couple of links. We obviously want to put links on the show notes to how people can follow you. And we really encourage people, subscribe to this YouTube channel, get on all things Buddy Brown. But what are a couple of songs that you think we should showcase at the end of this?
I think everybody would get a big kick out of my Alan Jackson rewrite that we just did because it was huge. It's called that old song Alan did called "I'm in Love with You, Baby. I Don't Even Know Your Name." And we were speaking to Joe Biden. Of course, we said he's the president now, baby. He don't even know his name. He doesn't know where he is half the time. So I think they'd get a kick out of that one. We did Kamala got ran over by a reindeer, stuff like that. But on the serious side, we did do songs like Cool Obituary and Pedro, The Judge. I mean, just a lot of story songs. We've got all kinds of stuff, not just political, obviously. I mean, I love a good story. Like, I'm a Mississippian. So if there's anything I feel like I can tell in story form, that's always been my heart. Yeah,
man. Yeah, well, you are so great at it. And we appreciate you so much, buddy. Appreciate your family. And I know your boys got kind of dinged up in football practice today. So our thoughts and prayers out to them. So thank you for being with us. And anytime we can ever help you, you let us know.
Thank you, Andy. It's been great to be here.
He was just about 90, he lived a long life. A bad hip and arthritis kept him up every night. So we took to a mountain on Saturday morning, knew that this was the day that he'd be reborn. He was tracking a grizzly, there was sign everywhere. Knew he didn't stand a chance, but he didn't seem to care. He was gonna go down in one hell of a fight, so he lit a cigar and he gathered his mind. When that bear stood up out of the cave he was in, most men would hightail, but he stood there and grinned. Got off one single shot, man, it must have been scary. He's gone, but he left a cool obituary. All they found was his billfold and an old Stetson hat, half a cigar and a Rocky Mountain map. His 50 cal Hawken he took everywhere, even to his last fight with an old grizzly bear. When that bear stood up out of the cave he was in, most men would hightail, but he stood there and grinned. Got off one single shot, and it must have been scary. He's gone, but he left a cool obituary. found a note in his jacket, tossed off to the side. Said his best friend was killed when he was 75 by a dark grizzly bear that weighed 600 pounds. The same one that lay dead next to him on the ground. When that bear stood up out of the cave he was in, most men would hightail, but he stood there and grinned. Got off one single shot, and it must have been scary. He's gone, but he left a cool obituary. He's gone, but he left a cool obituary.
I'm Andy Andrews, the professional noticer, harnessing common sense and wisdom to plow through challenges all the way to an answer for you. And I think that'll do it for this week. Get us out of here, Matthew. So, ladies and gentlemen, and to the boys and girls who aspire to become ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of another episode of The Professional Noticer. In a world where common sense has become a superpower, I'm harnessing what tiny bit of mental energy I have for you, seeking wisdom, making observations, and endeavoring to answer tough questions in a way that will empower your family and your business. I'm Andy Andrews. Until next week, goodbye. This episode of The Professional Noticer was produced by Matt Limpert. The Noticer theme written and performed by Sugarcane Jane. Buddy's Truck Sessions for the cast and crew provided by Twinkle and Smoke of Beverly Hills. Additional financial consideration provided by westernnovels.com. Friends, are you tired of the good guy losing? Have you had it with bad language and declining character in your reading materials? Then great news, westernnovels.com is perfect for you. These are all audio versions of the classic stories by Zane Grey, Louis L'Amour, Ralph Compton, and Max Brand. Best of all, westernnovels.com has hired the greatest vocal impersonators available today, so your stories will be read by the voices of John Wayne, Jimmy Stewart, Henry Fonda, James Arness, and many more. No cussing, no sex, just good guys killing bad guys the way you like it. Order your first story now, voiced by a Sam Elliott sound-alike. It's the Ralph Compton classic, Twin Colt Justice, the story of Dusty Fogg, the Rio Hondo gun wizard, fastest draw in the West, East, North, and South, an expert in the fine art of trigonometry. Log on now, westernnovels.com.